What's up, everybody? You have Dr. Benjamin Morrell and Ty Hamilton. And on the Lit podcast today, we're going to talk about overcoming PTSD in the great state of Oklahoma.
Yes, sir.
That's her. A couple of small town boys going through it. My good guy here has extensive history with EMS work. And, of course, me as a psychiatrist have seen all that stuff. So we're going to combine what we know, try to teach the good lessons and how to get through this. We're talking about psychedelic medicine, of course, is going to be a hot topic. We're going to talk about natural methods, fitness. Obviously, my guy works out. So do I. That's a necessary component of brain health, I would say. And then he's married with kids, too. So I would love to hear how to balance such things and enter the entrepreneurial space successfully in this great state of ours. Nice to have you on, Ty.
Thank you, man. Thanks for having me here. First official real podcast. I'm pretty excited about this and slightly nervous, but I know you'll take care of me.
That's why I was surprised. I saw you had like 20 something thousand followers on Instagram. I was like, oh, I'm getting big timed. Here we go.
Yeah, that's a whole nother story for another time.
Yeah, Oklahoma City celebrity. C-listers. I want to get that t-shirt, C-list Oklahoma
okay,
City.
C-listers.
Yeah, right. That's where I'm at. It's funny. So I definitely wanted to, keep the conversation, lighthearted, but definitely dive into the reality, kind of getting the full spectrum of the process, because some people, they're like, oh, I've healed from my trauma. I was like, well, you seem pretty dull and sad. So, not sure how I feel about that. I really don't get that sensation when I talk to you, which makes you more credible in my mind in the realms of you're actually doing what you said that you have done. And also people are like, I've experienced trauma. And then you hear their trauma. I'm like, that's kind of a warm up,
Yeah. And in some comparisons, I try not to compare.
It's hard not to. It's hard not to. I don't want to one up you on traumas.
Sure.
I've definitely been in those conversations.
Sure. Yeah. Somebody put it away. Like a lot of times we view trauma as, this severity or this severity, but a lot of times it leaves a scar. And the scar tends to remain on the body, and how deep that scar goes is really just how that trauma affected you. So it's easy for us to be like, hey, I experienced this, and this, and the most extreme trauma you could ever even imagine walking around on this earth. And then somebody experienced something that we would consider an eighth of what that would be, yet they both share very similar experiences and how they had to navigate the world with that. And so for me, it was like, that kind of led me down a path of no more comparison when it comes to trauma. A lot of people will be like, oh, you've been through some stuff, man. Like, I don't know if I really resonate with that, but then I see like how they act, how they run away from some difficulties life throws at you, that I'm like, no, I walked that same path that you did. Yeah. Though mine may seem more chaotic, but you and I are a lot more similar than you may think.
I think trauma is not what happens to you, it's what happens inside of you, Dr. Gabor Mate, which means that, it's something that could be casual, and it could be the same experience that happens to two different people. One person interprets it in one way, and another person interprets it in another. Like, say, for example, when I was young, my little brother got hit by a truck. And that was like the first major trauma that I experienced. And we were really close. And I took that in a very bad way, where I was like, the world is a dark, scary place. And it's unfair. It's unjust. Where's God? Who am I? How come I couldn't help? All these feelings and sensations. Versus my older brother, I asked him what happened to him. And he was like, oh, Mom told me it was going to be okay. So I just believed her. And I was like, that's wild. That's all that happened to you?
It's incredible, right?
So he had
same thing.
And he had no problem. We went through the same thing, but he just, nothing, didn't get any experiences from that. No PTSD symptoms. I'm over here having nightmares and flashbacks for like 20 years. And it's like, dude, that's also like the beautiful in the realms of like, that's the power of the soothing words of a mother,
That's so true.
That's cool.
The more I've talked with you, the more I see similarity in the regards to, I'm a hardcore empath. I really feel a lot of emotion. I can feel other people's emotion. In circumstances like that, I do a deep dive myself and can go down that really dark path if I'm not careful. And sometimes I have to be careful what I digest just on TV or in just music in general.
Right.
Because a lot of times
you saw that, man, if you scroll for 30 minutes on social media, you will see more traumatic stuff than somebody else would see in a lifetime.
How they allow that on social media. We're getting so desensitized. And a lot
brutal.
of us are not.
And the news. The news does that too. You talked about that. Freaking like, oh, here's how these kids died and drowned. I'm like, whoa, this is very vivid, man. I'm sitting here on my couch.
What are we doing painting these pictures? These are horrific pictures, by the way.
Right. So that definitely is so we're at a population or worldwide level, is that we're being exposed to it more than we've ever been exposed to it. If there's one thing that we know from, say, the Adverse Childhood Experiences study, is that these are very, very powerful, and that they will shift our psychology, our physiology, everything towards more sickness, illness, disease, and mental issues. Yeah. So that was sort of a groundbreaking study. Are you familiar with that one?
I'm not, but I can speak from experience, just watching others, watching myself, how I respond to a lot of these things, these desensitization techniques that we're seeing in social media and just media in general. It causes us to become very dull. And then it requires us to experience even more traumatic stuff just to feel something. So
right.
That's what they do, is they got to create more traumatic. It's got to be crazier.
What's worse than last time?
You know what I mean? You're bored of this insanity of people literally dying in front of you, but what if we showed you this snuff film on Instagram? I'm like, how did this... Here we are, not to get on a total tangent, but we can lock down certain key words. So we can lock down some free speech in some of these categories when we're talking about social media or media in general. Yet you can get these crazy videos that still get the green light and scroll and see something that will stick with you potentially for the rest of your life.
Right. How come we can't censor child porn?
What are we doing?
Right. How come you can censor my speech about something that's a real topic?
You
can't do anything about that, like blood and guts. And anyways,
wild.
Yeah. So in general, that the world has problems is what we're getting at, and that we're just here to talk about some.
Be careful what you ingest, right? I'm a huge advocate of watching what your feed is doing. If your feed is literally feeding you nonsense that is not in correlation with what path that you're trying to go and learn more from, then you need to look deeper within and why this is being shown. A lot of times you may have accidentally liked something, or you followed someone that you shouldn't have followed. I'm a big people pleaser. I'm still working on that. So if you send me a follow, I'll send a follow back. But I'm learning when I follow somebody, sometimes I actually now am engaging with that person that follows all these other accounts, and it's like they like this stuff, so maybe you also like.
When we
this
became
stuff.
Friends yesterday,
God.
3 people.
Oh God, what'd you see?
3 people hit me up or became my friends. I was like, "Who are you?" And the only friend in common is you.
That's wild.
Yeah, I was like, we're just doing it. You just trust Ty.
I'm just jumping on the bandwagon.
Here's another cool guy.
I like this guy.
Follow you too.
That happens all the time.
Appreciate it
all the time.
Modern world.
Seriously.
Yeah. So just to frame the conversation, so to keep it on somewhat of a rails, I definitely like open forum conversation, and it's not a strict interview. Those to me are a little clunky, and it's hard to be real. But explain to people what trauma is from the zoomed out perspective, and then how it can apply it to our day in and day out lives. So in general, when I'm thinking about trauma, I'm thinking about it's a constellation of features if you use like the DSM-5. Okay, so we're looking at like nightmares generally. Well, it's going to be there's 2 paths to get there. There's going to be one big traumatic episode. So this is when you're thinking about like your war veterans, like you saw someone die right in front of you. You see, or sexual assault or something, cars exploding. There's all kinds of crazy ways to get there. Even panic attacks can kind of get you there a little bit. So there's usually one big event where that person is one way before that experience, and then after they're a fundamentally different person. So I got to experience that one when I was young, when I was otherwise a pretty normal, healthy kid. I was still pretty skeptical even in my youth, though. I mean, I was primed for trauma. I'll put it that way, and that I was kind of looking for problems. And then one really bad event happened, and then where the life is just not the same it was before. So with that comes a lot of mind-body issues. There's a disconnection where that trauma, that force, is a massive like psychological stressor that then gets translated into a physiological response. So that event, even though it was just a one-time thing, it changed my physiology moving forward to where I'm much more prone to stress. All my thoughts are generally more negative, more anxious. It's hard to sleep that way. And then you tend to only see the problems. And this really sets you up for a lifelong of increased stress, which will then set you up for a lifelong of increased disease. So all the things that stem off of that longitudinally through time, higher risks of addiction, higher risks of cardiovascular disease, strokes. That's the adverse childhood experiences study. If you look at the kids who have a lot of traumatic events in their youth and follow them longitudinally through time, it is rough, right? It is like probably the number two determinant of how their life is going to go is what you experienced in your youth. So the symptoms that go with that, I covered a couple of them. So the big ones are going to be nightmares, flashbacks, poor sleep, lack of trust in the world, chronic negativity, and just the inability to trust people, and generally you'll see like a lot of panic attacks in and out of those too. So it's sort of it's the big one. Like PTSD is the big one. Like that one is really, really hard to work with. It is very treatable. It is one of the most treatable things that you can do or diseases or that you can work with, but the getting people to adhere, getting them to accept help because they are so like trusting. Like I didn't trust anybody, dude. Like just the way that I was. I'm just sitting in the corner of a room. I'm just not about that. Like 100%. Like someone's trying to talk to you. Like I want to help you. I'm like, why? Like, no, pretty much. So that's your first way to get there is one big stressor. And we'll talk through yours. I know you had probably a couple key instances that were like that. And then the other way is CPTSD or complex trauma, which is just a combination of a bunch of smaller insults. Like, so if you're trying to chop the tree down, you can just hit it with, one big chainsaw, one big dozer one time, or you can hit it 1,000 times with a knife or an axe, or 1,000,000 times or whatever it may be till it falls. So whenever you see a lot of people who, for example, you ask them if something bad happened to them, they actually can't come up with one thing. It was just, living in a crappy household where their parents just put them down, or they were hyper religious and told them they were going to hell, or whatever it may be. And there's a bunch of small insults getting beat up every day, just a little bit through time, causes the same constellation of features to some capacity where you're just wearing out the nervous system, and you're always getting these threat signals when you don't need to be. Living in a threatening environment for that situation for a long time, it trains you to be that way, for example. Yeah, so that's the two paths.
Yeah, I was about to actually ask you, which you already just answered, and that was, my question was going to be, a lot of the time is these things feel really broad. It's like it comes to that fine point, and you didn't understand why that happened. For me, growing up, that was pretty similar to what I experienced growing up. It was smaller initially. It ramped up. Not to get into like specifics, but my household I lived in a loving household. Make no mistake about it. I feel very fortunate. My parents are still together. But with that being said, what happened within the confines of those walls was really something that I experienced that when you're a kid, you think everyone experiences the same thing. So you don't know that your experience is any different than your friend's experience. So you just accept it for that. This is what life is. And the thing that I grew up with pretty rampantly in the household was a lot of fighting, a lot of screaming. Typically, it was just, relationships between my parents working through their indifferences, but being a child and witnessing that and hearing that on a pretty regular basis starts to now create a new paradigm of what a normal life is like. And then when that started to transition into that energy being reflected onto me and experiencing a lot of that severe, extreme anger, that's probably my first time I ever experienced an outer body experience. That was my first coping skill.
Oh yeah, dissociation is a big one.
Oh yeah, big deal. So I remember a very specific moment where my father and I were just really going at it, and I was only probably 5 years old or something like that, and to the point where I went cross-eyed. And it was like a moment that I was like, I'm going to make this reality not seem real. I'm going to, make this one person in front of me look like 2 or 3 people and make this not feel like this is happening to me right now. And I just started to dissociate from that moment. And that was the first coping skill that I learned in one of those like extreme traumatic moments. Yeah. And that was kind of like the apex of the anger inside the house. But then you fast forward all the way until probably into high school years. I didn't recall any of my childhood. I couldn't tell why. All my friends would talk about their childhood. It's like, oh yeah, I did this and that. I'm like, do you remember that? Like, yeah.
My dad is like 76 and he talks about what happened to him in the 2nd grade. I'm like, how
Wild.
Or do you do it?
Wild.
That was a good point though, is one of the symptoms I had failed to mention was dissociation and depersonalization or derealization, where everything just goes whoa. Mm-hmm. And it feels like you're living in a movie and you're there and like, are you just an extra character you don't know? And then dissociation is when you just completely check out and your eyes are just glossed over or glazed over. That was the one that I did like all the time. Like in school, I was never actually there. I was just like in a different world, checked out. And that is it's a very protective mechanism, because like if you're getting, beat up or abused or whatever it is, checking out is better than you just sitting there sustaining all of that damage.
Yeah.
And what we're doing unconsciously is we're trying to protect ourselves. So each one of these thoughts is actually translating into a hormone. So when you feel an emotion of fear, you're sending shock waves throughout your whole body of, cortisol, stress hormones, and that's hitting your cells and signaling them, oh shit, oh no, right? And then they all start preparing for war or preparing for death, and that completely changes the way that they act and behave. And then if you do that hundreds of times a day, right? Because then you see, like, say for example, I got to do biofeedback where they plugged me into, like, you could see my heart rate in real time. You could see my temperature in real time, my respiratory rate, and like temperature as well, and pulse ox. So these are all on screens right in front of me. And I'm doing psychotherapy with this visit the VA. I'm in medical school. It was pretty awesome, actually. I did not believe in meditation before this, really. But I was like, sure, I'll plug me in. If it works for the veterans,
right.
I'll try it out. And my resting heart rate's like 44. Everything is normal. Yeah. Like I'm chilling.
That's impressive.
Right. Yeah. Right. Until he was like, we'll talk about something that bothers you. And I talked about my brother's addiction. And my resting heart rate went from 44 to like 102.
Wow.
My temperature went up a whole degree, and like my breathing became all erratic, and I'm seeing it all right in front of me. And then it became so real that I thought thoughts were just like emotions, like, yeah, whatever, you're soft, And then I saw the impact of just one of these things. And then I started thinking, oh my God, I've been doing this to myself thousands of times a day and in the middle of the night for years.
So healthy for your body. Yeah. So healthy.
Free cardio. Wrong.
Burn those calories.
Yeah, panicking. But yeah, so what I'm getting at is that it seems like just thoughts, right? Was in the old way of thinking of like, yeah, just suck it up, get over it. But in reality, each one of these thoughts has like a toxic element to it. The same way that you could like hit yourself or strike yourself in your flesh is the same way that this is what it's doing to your brain. Is it causes like your hippocampus to shrink. It causes your amygdala to get bigger and more reactive in terms of its emotional capacities, and then your ability to be present shrinks. Like it literally causes sustained issues, and it's not just this thing where it's woo-woo or out there or you're soft. There are tangible, literal effects. We could scan your brain and see a brain that is struggling from PTSD. It's completely out of balance, where it's hyper-reactive in terms of the areas responsible for like threat detection, and the fight or flight system is just so quick. So what you're experiencing or we're going through is like, if we looked at your brain during that time, Ty, it would become crazy out of balance and misproportioned. So when you see an ill human being, you can see their physical structure, right? Apple-shaped, thin limbs and a big central core, and like bad posture. Like, oh, this person's not doing good physically. So that makes sense to us. But and the same thing is happening in your brain. We just can't see it. So when I finally saw scans of a brain in medical school, and I was like, oh my God, like this is a real thing. What I've been treating as it was casual, I was like, no, like this is going down. And then it just flipped a switch in me of like, okay, so I know this is real. If I can train my brain the way that I train my body, because I very much understood fitness and, well, it's kind of a meathead. I got the concepts. I got the
overall.
The concepts are there. Yeah, if you train it, it'll get better. If you don't, it won't. And I have trained negativity and pain and suffering into myself for so long that it's normal. It's normal for me to hate. It's normal for me to mistrust. It's normal for me to check out or not give people the attention or the time of day or to be rude. And now I have to retrain myself. I have to retrain myself and give myself the right food and right sleep, and then the brain will slowly shift to where it generates those things naturally. So getting the brain in shape is when I said that PTSD is very treatable, very curable, is that we can scan the brain before treatment, put in the necessary shifts and changes and practices, and then see it again afterwards. And then we get Ty 2.0. So that's what I want this conversation to be is, what did you do that started shifting your well, first of all, how'd you even figure that out in the first place? Because like I said, I was looking at scans and stuff. Like, how'd you
I was going to say, if I had this conversation in like my mid-teens, oh my God, how grateful would I be? Because to my point earlier, this was just my normal. And I thought that
regular day.
Everybody's normal, that everyone fucked each other up mentally, little ninja mind fucks all the time. And, for instance, I'm a very healthy individual myself. I watch what I eat, I work out, I exercise regularly. I was always on some type of team of some sort. Yet when I would go and get the only tangible feedback I ever got from a data standpoint was my blood pressure. And everything that you looked at would make sense that I am minimum at that baseline of 120/80. But there's a high probability, since I'm in such good shape, that I'm going to be below the average. I mean, the average American, that's not a
good comparison.
Yeah, that's not a very good baseline to go shoot for. Yet every time that I got my blood pressure checked, every time they would look at me and be like, that can't be right. Like, what's it say? They're like 154/97.
Yeah, you were tweaking.
And I'm like, I'm totally fine. What are you? And they're like, we could try it again. And every time it ended up being that way. So that was the only feedback that I ever got, but I never knew why. And it's because I was in a constant state of reenacting these scenarios that were happening.
Fight or flight.
All the time.
My body's in war mode.
Holy moly. And I'd been in it forever.
Yeah.
Like ever since I was a 5-year-old, is as far back as I can go. It's probably even before then. But yeah, I've been living that lifestyle all the way up until my late 20s. And that was taking a toll in a big way. So
trauma will age you rapidly.
Oh my God.
It will age you rapidly.
Oh my God.
And the weird health effects that come from it are insane.
I never knew that I hadn't experienced being in a present moment until I finally was introduced to cannabis. And when I tried that, I had a different experience on the first couple of tries or whatever. And then I had a big experience, which we'll go over in a little while. But once I started dabbling into that more intentionally, I started to like care about the seconds that were flowing by, that I was appreciating the moments that I was sharing with another human being. And I was like, oh my God, this is unlike anything I've ever experienced in my life. Real connection of listening to what you have to say versus I say something, you say something, conversation over.
Are you listening or waiting to talk?
Right, exactly. And I was always a waiting to talk guy.
Yeah, same. Like,
I need you to be done. Like, it's my turn. Yeah, it's always my turn.
I've been 315.
100%. So for me, the thing that helped me transition into that, making headway in that area, was experiencing my rock bottom. I'm also a big proponent of not believing you have to hit rock bottom to get there, that there is a lot of advice out there. There's a lot of people's testimony and experience that you can learn from without having to go experience it yourself. But with that being said, my story was very much of the living in the world and this is my world and everyone else is living the same thing. So I just need to go figure it out versus ask the questions and really see if I can pursue education from somebody else that's already experienced it. So that's a tough journey to go on. And so I just kept moving forward and forging until I hit the rock bottom. And rock bottom for me was suicide. I didn't even know I got there. It was accidental. Yeah. I think a lot of people think that, they're just not feeling good or whatever. And then they come up with a plan and there's a lot of people out there, there's no plan. It just fucking happens.
Yeah. It's unconscious. It's like, let's do it.
100%.
Jump in front of this bus or whatever.
100%. When I was a kid, I can't remember how old I was. I was probably somewhere around 10 years old, but I get the call that my cousin ended his life. And he was in the midst of just a chaotic moment. I think the story that I was told is him and his girlfriend were fighting or something, and there's no escape from this insanity, and for him the only thing that made sense was to end this circle of pain.
Yeah, my cousin killed himself too.
It's terrible, right? And so that was my first experience of seeing someone young pass away, and it affected me in such a way that I never anticipated. Something that I'm like, okay, what I'm experiencing is normal. Everyone's experiencing this, and I'm probably next. And that was terrifying. It got to the point where I kept moving forward in a direction that I would only ask questions, never search for answers, which is a scary place to be in too. If all you have is doubt. And
and then you don't do anything about it.
Right. You're just like, I let doubt run my life.
No, suffer in silence. I guess this is just what it is.
That's it. That's it. And that's exactly what I did. I suffered in silence. I put on that little happy face. I was always the kid that people would come to for jokes or having a good time. And I resonated a lot with Robin Williams.
Same.
Bro, I'm like, dude, what a energetic, fun personality. And then how that story ends, I'm like,
about right.
That makes sense.
Right.
I'm like, that's
the other thing. Trauma and talent do go hand in hand. So with these bizarre and crazy experiences, it literally makes you think differently. So like dark humor or the ability to be crazy and all over the place, like that's normalcy. So oftentimes your unstable friend is always your funniest friend. And that was me too a lot.
Oh, remember that, people. Right. Go check on your funny friends. They're going through some shit.
Right. For real.
Not all of them, but there's a lot of them.
Big times. So if we heal ourselves, and you set yourself up, then you still have access to all of those things, but without having the negative side effects. So that's the benefit of the healing process. So like now I can still be funny. And I can also still think like a murderer or something like that, because I can put myself in the mind of different situations. I'm on edge a little bit, but in a healthy way. Like the right amount of anxiety, I would say, can be good for you. Of like, I think things through to some capacity. I also have that ability to endure a lot of suffering. If you've been through a lot of pain, like who's jumping in cold plunges and doing this kind of stuff on purpose just to see what's over there.
That's a good point. I did want to touch this since we are being filmed. If you see me tweaking, it's because we just got out of a cold plunge and I'm still trying to warm up my internal temperature. So he's like, wow, Ty's really going through some shit right now. I was like, no, he's just internally cold.
He's shaking harder than the chihuahua.
So that's what's really happening.
That's trauma right there, though.
100%. But that's so true. But how much more appealing are you now as an individual to others outside? You were already, I'm sure, a fun person to hang out with. But when you get on the other side of it, though, and you really learn who you are and have that self-confidence of like, I can be all of this.
Yeah.
All of it. I can be the broken. I can be the fixed. I can be on the one that is on the trajectory of becoming who they're supposed to be, learning who you are. And boy, does that gravitate more and more people. That's been my experience ever since I started that journey.
They're like, gifts. Yeah, when people hear about it, they want to know. People want to know. Trauma is the one thing that we all have in common. Pain is the one thing. Suffering is the one thing. It does not matter who you are on the face of planet Earth. Everybody gets it. Your grandma's going to die. Your parents are going to die. You're going to get hurt. You're going to get sick. You're going to lose people to cancer, disease. Everybody gets that. Yep. And we have this weird thing that humans do where they don't want to talk about it, and yet everybody wants to hear about it. Right.
Well, and now, like you said, we've been sharpening the tool that we didn't even know that we even had, and that was the tool of humor. I think humor is such a powerful medicine. And so when I can talk about my journey that I've been on, even from the most darkest points of my life, and still make jokes about it, it alleviates the you getting caught up in the monotony of like how dark this is, because sometimes, like I spoke about earlier, as being that extreme empath, I can get stuck in someone's dark journey. But if you give me a little bit of dark humor and there's like, oh, okay, I'm back. You brought me back. Like, okay, now where are we going with this?
Right.
So we really do have a gift of being able to converse with those individuals and give them that glimpse of hope. And that was really all I was looking for and searching for in my journey of darkness was, man, give me a little bit of hope. Give me something.
Show me somebody doing it well. That was the other issue, is like the lack of leadership, you know. And my dad had plenty of it, but if you grow up in a culture where you don't talk about it, you can't think about it, you can't feel about it, then you don't ever actually process anything on your own. So he didn't teach me any of those lessons. Like, hey, this is what it's like to lose a child.
Sure.
You know, this is what it's like to get into a fight in your youth or get picked on or not have a dad. My dad didn't talk about any of that stuff. He's like, this is how you get through it.
Yeah.
Yeah. You just don't talk about it. Just go.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it serves people if that's your only option. But for people like us who are empathetic, like I genuinely want to figure this out. And I don't want to keep perpetuating the cycle. I want to do something about it. I want to know so I can end it. And I never saw that in my real life. I didn't see a person who was doing that. Even though it was around me, they just never talked about it. So I wanted to change that narrative in my life, in that I want my kids and my people around me to know what I went through. Because otherwise they just think that Ben is just this guy.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I got 4 degrees and get to be who I am, traveling around, doing all these things, and people are like, "Oh, well, you're just a cool dude." I'm like, dude, I don't think you get it.
So easy.
Like,
to just
if I wasn't studying or working out, I was not okay.
Yes.
So I don't like take some kind of glory, like, oh yeah, you know, like this is just awesome. Like it just simply need to be done. Overworking is a symptom of trauma. Yep. I got this far just because of that, you know, that mechanism. And I guess it turns out that it's good after the fact once you heal it. But dang, you know, that's 100%. A lot of unnecessary suffering in there, and a lot of people got stomped on and walked on, and yeah, I wasn't kind all the times to people, and it was just a life of like, I just want to make sure that other people do not want to have to deal with that.
That's it. I'm learning to live life without regret, so I don't really regret my past decisions. I don't regret my future decisions, really, despite how crazy it can be. Just from what I've experienced, life is going to show itself and where you're supposed to go. And so I'm grateful for every experience. I'm grateful for every choice I did, whether it be the right or wrong at that time. For me, I thought I was just taking losses all the time. Those I was just L, right? And I was like, but once I started to really work on myself and start progressing and changing the narrative that I'm, oh, poor me, broken me, and switch that to, wow, what opportunity do I have right now to grow this part of me? And so I turn those L's from losses to L's of lessons. And it's like, brilliant. I'm so grateful for this lesson that's being presented to me. The lesson of how not to do something. The lesson of, oh, I could have done this differently. Instead of that constant bereavement of just like, right. Oh, you fucked up again. Yeah, you keep fucking up, and why do you keep fucking up? And then that self-talk and
internal dialogue.
Oh, it's nonsense.
I was ruthless to myself.
It's terrible. The amount of times that I looked at myself in the mirror and just went off.
I know, and
and
you're in peak shape too.
Oh my God.
That's the crazy part. Is like people are like, "Oh, you got it going on." I was like, I hate myself.
Like, you have no idea.
I don't think you get it.
The people that are the closest with me, they'll be the first to tell you is like, Ty does not see himself as
right. Body dysmorphia
at
some capacity. Yeah.
Never got there.
It's more like, you know, body dysmorphia, but it's like a reflection of your internal state.
I was going to say even mind dysmorphia.
Yeah, because here's the thing: is I went. I think it's about like 6 semesters in a row with 4.0s, and I still thought that I was dumb.
Yep.
I still like 100% was like, no, I'm just
imposter.
I'm just an idiot or whatever. It's only because I work hard. It's not because I'm smart.
Yes.
You know? But so teaching point before I lose it is that gratitude rewires trauma. We know this for a fact. This is one of the first things that I read, and
I wish I knew that.
Right. It literally will think about it. So so the perspective is what changes it. So if I'm looking at in my youth and I see my little brother get hit by a truck, right? And I'm in a victim mindset, all this waves of like, oh no, like life sucks. It just surges over my body and pushes me towards negativity immediately. If instead I say, oh, well, this was an opportunity that I was blessed with. It was a gift from God to make me realize and appreciate life. to appreciate my little brother, to appreciate people around me, to call me to the present. It literally flips a switch where now I get chills over my body where I'm like, yo, thank God it woke me up. Really, this was a defining moment in my journey with PTSD. Also, it was influenced by MDMA, and we're talking about psychedelic medicine, so I'll include that. But I did all of the work, and I even dove into the psychedelic research, and I read through the studies. It looked like MDMA was very promising for PTSD veterans for helping them along. I read some of the stories, and I was like, yo, this sounds a lot like me. And I would really like to see what this is all about, because I'd never really experienced a positive emotion. And even though I was surrounded by great people and had everything that you would look like from the outside, inside I was hollow. I couldn't actually feel those things, right? That mind, body, and emotional disconnection. I just super numb, but also could only feel bad emotions. It's the weirdest combination of features, like all the bad stuff without any of the good stuff. So anyways, when I did that, I had been practicing gratitude. I had did all the things, I fixed my nutrition and my overall lifestyle to where I was somewhat healthy. So I set myself up for it in a good way. And whenever I did it, for the first time in my life, I was able to experience positive emotion. Or at least for an extended duration of time. There was flashes of it here and there, just to keep you alive, it felt like in the past. Those brief moments where you get the sack or, you dunk the ball, you're like, yeah, just a little bit, very fleeting. But for the first time, I could retain and stay in a consistent state of peace and warmth. And I looked back to my life, and I realized I had this pervasive feeling of loss and grief. There's a dark cloud looming over my consciousness, all the time, just rain clouds, just oh God. And then I realized that sensation, I was complaining. I was inhabiting a victim mindset. Things were happening to me, right? And then when I looked at the past, the chains that I thought bound me were these traumas, these bad things that had happened. Nothing ever went my way. You watch your people close to you get on drugs and you lose them, or your brother. I was like, dude. And then with this lens of gratitude, I looked at it and I was like, oh, wow. The chains that I thought that were binding me were actually the weights that were given to me to make me strong. And that it was a gift.
I love it.
It was a gift. So then literally in that one singular moment, when I flipped it from I lost my little brother to oh, wait a minute, I gained my little brother. And if it wasn't for that situation, I would never have went to medical school. I became a doctor to be able to give life back to people. That all stemmed from my little brother. And I have helped thousands of people. So would I take all of that away was the second question. Would you take away all of your traumas to be just a regular sheeple, just to be a regular person living out here? And the first thought to that, Ty, was absolutely not. Yeah. I can't stand just regular people who don't care. Just yeah, whatever, lackadaisical, no investment. They're not empathetic. It's just kind of sure, nothing bad ever happened to them. They never got woken up. It's just regular. It's just normal. And there's no way I would sign up for that. So in which case, the second switch flipped was, in which case I want more. I like lifting these weights. If it's making me stronger and it's helping me, why would I shy away from trauma? Why would I shy away from pain or suffering? So then I started leaning into it. And then you start helping other people with theirs, and you start jacking yourself up on purpose just to see what happens, and then putting the pieces back together. And then that was the birthing of me becoming a psychiatrist. Well, let's just go to these dark places and find the light.
Bro, I love that so much. It's not an easy topic to speak about because it's tricky, right? There's a lot of people that were affected in a moment like that, losing your brother, and you don't want to hurt them by saying I'm grateful for that moment. But the truth is, if you're going to surpass that moment and not let that moment define who you are, define your life, define your brother's life, then we need to find a way to enter into that gratitude. And it's not an easy path. It's easy to talk about, but it's not an easy path to go into. And I love the proverbial mind gym of here I was being restrained, yet those restraints were the weights that are going to help me build into the person I'm going to become in the future. And that could not resonate any more with me and my story as well. I too lost a little brother.
Yeah.
And my best friend, fuck, my fucking best friend. 2 years younger than me, always going on these snowboard trips together. Everywhere we went, don't get me wrong, we definitely got into our fights. You know what I mean? But that's what love is. And on our way back from a snowboard trip, some animals walked out in front of the road. Car didn't react the way it should have. And anyway, we end up flipping 7 or 8 times. He gets ejected. And, you know, this is one of those things, like I asked the questions of why did I go down the path of becoming a paramedic? You know what I mean? Like, how does that make sense? That's not what I do today. I set myself up to experience a lot of trauma, see a lot of people die in front of me. And it was very, at the time in my early 20s, it didn't affect me that much. So I thought, until in my 30s, and I realized that took a little bit of a toll on me. But as I look further back and I think about that moment, the moment that changed the trajectory of my life forever, of finding my brother in the way he was and being in the middle of nowhere and having to begin CPR on my own best friend. And I had to for 3.5 hours by myself. And I had a couple friends, and I sent them up to the road to grab somebody and stop and call 911. We couldn't find our phones. They were scattered somewhere in New Mexico. And I look back at it now, and it's that question of why do I go on certain paths is maybe I was a paramedic at one point because that moment was going to probably happen outside of my control. And this is a moment where I can at least rest in that my brother received the care that he was supposed to receive in that moment. If there was ever a chance to bring him back and resuscitate, he had an older brother that would give his life in a millisecond to trade places with him. And I did everything I could to bring him back. And man, when it's God's way, it's God's way. So there's no way I'm going to beat him. And when I finally realized that that would be the answer, and I knew the only thing I could do in that moment was embrace that boy and hug him as hard as I possibly could until he entered into that next realm. But with that being said, to experience something so traumatic like that, the PTSD that follows that is unimaginable. It's not just the aesthetics. It's not the feelings. It goes down to everything. It's spiritual in a regard. It's all the way down to taste, man. I mean, there'd be times it'd go 5 years after his death, and if I tasted something that tasted like him when I was doing CPR for those 3.5 hours, instantly I'd just go into these flashbacks and be nauseous, and I had to leave the restaurant. And you know, this changed the trajectory of my life, where I became a shell of myself, the most sad person I've ever encountered. And here I was looking myself in the mirror, seeing that sad person. And I wonder sometimes if I became, you know, I was always kind of that funny guy, but I wonder if I was funny because the perspective I had on this world was so sad. And that maybe if I could make someone laugh around me, that would make me feel a little better, that my perspective could change a little bit. It didn't change who I was, this sad fucking broken person, but at least I got someone to laugh. And boy, do I enjoy that experience way more than the alternative. But it wasn't until 8 years after his passing that I come to accidental terms of where I stood in that progress or lack thereof. And speaking of psychedelics, I get introduced to cannabis for the first time, and different experience, whatever, not really for me. It was a gummy and it was okay, whatever. A few months later, I get introduced to it again, but this time in the form of a joint. And I think the same thing. You eat a gummy and 2 or 3 hours later, you're going to feel something. So I get handed a joint and so I smoke the whole thing. And so whenever he reaches to like take it from me, I'm like, oh, it's, what do you mean? I already did it. And he's like, you smoked the whole thing? I was like, yeah. I was like, am I going to feel something in like 2 or 3 hours? And before I could even get that sentence out of my mouth,
Rookie mistake.
It started to hit, right? And I look at him and I'm like, ooh, this is different. And he goes, oh yeah, it's a different kind of experience. He's like, but you know, you'll be fine. You'll enjoy. Just try to relax a little bit. I'm going to go downstairs. I was on my rooftop at the time with my wife and new baby at the time. And so I was like, okay, let me just sit with this for a second. So I'm sitting with it. And boy, I just keep ramping up and up and up, and it's getting more uncomfortable. And then it's like this moment where the skies just break, and then boom, I have my first ever separation of self. And the separation of self was like a 13-year-old perspective me looking at me. And I'm looking at 33-year-old me through my own 13-year-old eyes. And I am judging the hell out of 33-year-old me. And, you know, you would think society says that I'm so successful. I got this money in the bank. I got this $1 million house, the dream car I always wanted, my favorite classic car, you know, a 69 Chevelle. Like, I have everything that I should be super, right? You know, like, fuck yeah. You know, I'm trying to experience what life has to offer, you know, and I'm doing it. I'm doing all the things. I'm doing all the things that 13-year-old me would fucking be pumped about. Right. So I thought, because here I am looking at myself as 13 again. And I'm like, what a fucking loser. Mm. I would never want to be you. Never in a million years, in a million lifetimes, would I want the end of my journey to look like you. You think you got it. But you're the saddest motherfucker I've ever seen in my entire life. You think I want to be that, bro? I'm 13. I'm living in the moment right now. And I'm going to turn into that? Fuck that. And fuck you. Fucking loser. And then my vision starts to pan. I see Crystal and I see my child. And it's like I follow them on social media. It's like I don't know them, but I know of them. And eventually 13-year-old me puts it together, the equation, like, wait a second. Well, that means that's probably his wife. And if that's his wife, that's probably his daughter. And then in that realization, it was, but if those two people exist, then that means my brother does not exist anymore. And at 25, when my brother died, he was 23, I was 25. I didn't have many coping skills at that time, but I had some more life experience than a 13-year-old. But 13-year-old me experiencing the loss of my brother, I had no capabilities of coping with that. And when I tell you my soul fractured in that moment, it scared the shit out of me. And then I had this like scary moment of, you need to wake up from this nightmare. And the only way I could think of as 13-year-old was, you know, you wake up right before you die. So I get this idea of like, you need to force this nightmare to end. Go wake up. And I feel myself get out of my chair, walk over to the edge of my rooftop terrace, to jump off head first, to wake up from this fucking night. I would do anything to get my brother back. Even 13-year-old me is like, nah, this is not real. Get out of it now. And as I get up and grip onto the rail, my wife says, are you okay? And she brings me out of that moment for a second, and like reality hits me, and I'm like, this is real. And then 13-year-old be back, no, this is a nightmare. Wake the fuck up and go. I had this back and forth conversation that seemed like it went for minutes, but I'm sure it was only seconds. And when I realized that I had no capability of like owning that moment, I knew I had to remove myself at least from a very unsafe situation. So I go downstairs. I get myself out of that moment. I run into my friend again. He's like, bro, you're so high right now. The nice thing about this is you just go to your bedroom, go to sleep, wake up, you're going to be fine. I'm like, you know what? That's what I need to do. So I go into my room, I lay down, and sleep was the last thing that happened that day. The walls start coming down on me a little bit, starting to get a little bit claustrophobic. Never had this experience before. And then out of nowhere, I describe it like I'm going through a Star Trek time warp zone. And it's just like tunnel, just moving 1,000 miles an hour, lights just flying as fast as they possibly can. And just when I can't deal with it anymore, I've never been in vision before, and I am screaming. My wife tells me that she was immediately ran into the bedroom trying to figure out what's going on, trying to pull me out of it. I didn't even know she was there. I am stuck in vision. And then I see this hand come up out of this tunnel. And I know exactly who and what this is. And I grab a hold, and it's my little brother. And I'm screaming at him, man. I'm just like, dude, I'm sorry. Like, I'm your older brother. I'm your gatekeeper. I'm the dude that's supposed to make sure that you're safe, and I'm the reason why you're not here. I was driving that car that day. I could not have been a worse big brother in that moment. You no longer are on this earth because of me. And when I couldn't deal with it anymore is whenever he started to speak to me. He's like, man, I've been waiting for you. I've been waiting for this moment. This was 8 years after he'd passed. I'm doing good financially. I'm doing all the stuff. I'm doing all the things. I thought I made it past it, but I haven't gone anywhere yet. And he's like, I've been waiting for you. I've been waiting for this moment. There's a lot that we got to work on. He's like, and I want to let you know that I love you. There's nothing that you need to forgive yourself for. You don't have the power to end my life. It's going to be okay. And I just want to let you know, like, I love your daughter, man. She's so beautiful. He's like, but you got to experience some stuff first. And so the time warp zone goes away, and we let go or grasp. I didn't know what those words meant at the time. And that's when I went into the next part of my journey, and that was flashbacks from hell, experiencing my brother dying in my arms over thousands of times over the next 8-hour period in that journey. Screaming, writhing in pain. My entire bed's completely soaking wet in sweat, to the point where mentally and physically I just can't take it anymore. And my body just lets go and passes out. I wake up that next morning, so distraught, so broken. Man, 8 years has gone by. How have I not made any progress? I call my mom. She's a physical therapist. Like, I just had a psychological break. I don't know where I'm going to go from here, but I tell you, I can't survive it. I cannot survive like I lost my brother 2 seconds ago again. I just now finally got past it. I'm not able to start over. My mom, she knows that I'm not a spiritual person. I don't have any faith at this point. That was accidental. I became atheist by accident, by asking the questions and not searching for answers, to the point where I didn't believe in anything anymore. No meaning in life. And then she says, well, I'll call all the best doctors. I was like, you know what? Before we do that, let me just get some fresh air. Let me get out of this house for a second. So I walked around my downtown area where I live, and this is like the first time ever that the algorithm on my cell phone worked to my benefit. My cell phone hears the 8-hour journey that I was just on the night before. Here's the conversation that I just had with my mother. And all of a sudden, these things start coming on my feed that I've never seen before in my entire life. They're talking about spirituality. They're talking about all these nuances of how to have connection with source. Never heard that term either. And God. And I come across this video of this Indian guru that has this massive Q&A. Thousands of people. And this girl gets handed the mic, and she asks the question. She asks, if somebody has a bad trip on plant medicine, again, language I've never heard before, how do you help them navigate that and maybe learn something from it? What do you tell people like that have experiences similar to that? And immediately he gets on and he's like, well, first let's talk about the words you used. One, you called it a trip. So if we're using intentional plant medicine, then obviously intention behind it would not just to be escaping from a moment or trying to elevate a moment, like enjoy food, make the flavors pop more, music, make the beats hit harder. If we're going on an intentional trip, then in fact, rather than trip, it's actually something I would call a journey. So let's change that word. And the other word you used was bad. Now, this is very typical for humans to label this. I do it today. He's like, we want to call it bad, good, and different. But let's just remove that altogether. Let's just keep it at a journey of self-exploration. So if you're going to go into a plant medicine journey, I use the metaphor like buying a ticket to a movie. So if you buy a comedy ticket, you show up, you watch the comedy film, you laugh, you expected that, great. Same thing with a horror film, buy a ticket, but then when you see that villain come across the screen and stab somebody, you don't go inherently screaming out of the theater because you think you're next. You know that you're watching a film. You know you're not in physical harm's way, so you can relax and enjoy the film. Well, when we go into these plant medicine intentional ceremonies, it's very similar. The only difference is you don't know what ticket you bought. The movie can change like that.
Right. Sometimes they're really, really, really positive experiences.
Right.
They're beautiful.
It can be both.
Other times it's the opposite.
Exactly.
But either way, it's always exactly what you need. It's the strange part. Lessons are learned.
Exactly. And so when he went further into that, he was like, a lot of the times the things that we think of what we call a quote unquote bad trip, we think of like the most awful experience we ever had in our life. And then we're going to get to experience that, but on another level, another frequency, a different dimension. He goes, but again, if we realize that it's not inherently going to physically harm you, then treat it like the film that it is. Relax in it. Surrender to it.
Yeah, what's it trying to teach you?
And let it just flow over you.
Yeah, what's it trying to teach you?
Exactly. Don't fight it, man. Let it happen. And so when we let that happen, we then realize that the subconscious is very powerful, that it gives you the ability, when we use these intentional plant medicines, for the subconscious to get activated and bring up some experiences, some past traumas.
Up out of the depths, man.
Out of the depths. Things that you would never want ever to show back up. And here it was. Again, I experienced my brother's death thousands of times over an 8-hour period. Why? Because literally in order.
Learn this lesson.
Learn this fucking lesson. This is the number one lesson that you need to learn right now. So why were you shown that? 8 years later, why are you being shown that? It's because my whole life I was taught that time heals all. But then I realize now, throughout this process, is that time just helps you push it into the subconscious so that we can survive in the day-to-day monotony of society, human life, what it means to be a successful person, make enough money to pay your rent, your mortgage, whatever it is. We get busy with the distractions, but we never heal. And so I was granted this opportunity to be shown, you've not done any work to heal from the loss of your brother. You clearly hold on to this and you judge yourself. You are the reason why he's died. That is the exact mentality you still have today. So here you are. You have the house of your dreams. You have the wife of your dreams, child of your dreams, car, you name it. But why are you still not happy? It's because you haven't done the work that's necessary, the thing that matters, and that is peace.
Right. You did everything except what you were supposed to do.
Exactly.
Yeah, you did a bunch of, it's overworking. You do everything except for addressing the thing that needs to be addressed.
That's it. Yeah. I'm trying to reach and hit these peaks, man. I'm hitting the peaks. I hit that extreme, like you saw, like you get that sack on the quarterback. I had the extreme moments of just like, yeah, validated. Look at me. I'm a badass. I did the thing. You know, I'm a small town kid that's fucking living life in downtown. Fuck that shit, man. What I realized is I'd done no work to heal from it. And so then once I was granted that gift, ultimately is what it became, is that I had an opportunity to learn from this, to start maybe searching for answers for the questions that I never searched for, trying to figure out what the meaning of my life is, and maybe look in some alternative options that maybe speak to me, resonate with it. It's going to help me digest it more so I can get more connected with this life. And so I start researching on this. Again, the algorithm starts helping me. It starts sending me all these podcasts that I've never even considered or anything. And I come across some of these podcasts and they start speaking about spirituality in a way I never heard of my entire life. A lot of these guys are like pro top athletes, the best of the best, doctors, NASA neuroscientists, incredible people this guy's interviewing. And it always comes back down to them having this like moment of, I got to change something or it's over.
Yeah, God only speaks to those who are willing to listen.
Exactly.
Yeah, not until we have humility and genuinely ask, will you ever? Yeah.
We're stubborn dudes, man. We're stubborn.
The broken are the chosen.
beings.
The broken are the chosen. Yeah, all this stuff, Christianity makes a lot more sense after.
100%. You know, it's the lessons between the lines that I think we sometimes forget. My first intro into spirituality was through Christianity, and for me, it never really resonated because I was always taught just follow the rules, and you're gonna be in
religion, not relationship.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And so I'd follow the rules, but I had no relationship at all. And here I am being presented with these alternative options, and I start learning from it because one, I'm looking for answers now, and two, I want to heal. I want to change the trajectory I'm on. And I start listening to these guys speak, and this guy brings up this term I've never heard in my entire life. He brings up this thing called ayahuasca. I'm like, what the hell is that? But then he talked about like what happened afterward. And that was enough to intrigue me to start doing my research. So I start researching. I've come across this YouTube video, and this guy starts explaining his story, and it's so similar to mine. Lost his little brother, very traumatic. I see it on his face. I've never resonated so much with another person until I saw this dude's eyes on this camera. I'm like, you and I are living the exact same timeline right now, and it's awful. If you can find something in this, I'm all in. And so I see this dude video record the day before his first ceremony, and then immediately after, nothing happens. Then second ceremony, same thing. Because you know what? I'm frustrated, but I had a lot of back pain. I'm like, bro, I do too. Like, what's that about? Like, you and I are living the same thing. And he's like, but this time I'm going to give all my attention into it. I'm going to meditate. I'm going to do everything the shaman tell me to do. I'm going to do these things. So he does it. And the next time you see this dude on camera, smiling ear to ear, I'm like, this guy looks 7 years younger after a 24-hour period. His shoulders have dropped probably 3 inches. His whole everything is so less tense. He is now living. I'm watching it transpire right in front of my eyes. I'm like, whatever this is not a guy that's just high. This guy experienced something that changed the way his mind works. I'm all in. So I sign up. I've not done shit. I've never done LSD or MDMA. I've done none of these things. But I know that I need to give this a shot. But I also know I'm not ready. So I put it out 1.5 years out in advance. And I made the decision every day leading up to this 1.5 years, I'm going to have intention in learning something new on how to cope through the things that life throws at us. And as I started researching that, boy, did I learn some amazing things of what the human body is capable of doing without any of these medicines.
Right. Yeah, breathwork alone.
Ooh,
meditation alone.
Yes.
I would have just tried that originally.
Oh my God, meditation. I already exercised, but I started running. I hate running. Bro, I hate it. I ended up doing a whole marathon.
Yeah.
I hate running.
I hate stretching and yoga.
See?
That was the gateway for me.
Exactly.
Beautiful experiences.
Do the things that you hate. You know much better than I do what part of the brain that is, but when we do the things that we don't want to do and we get on the outside of that and we were able to be successful with it, that part of the brain grows.
Anterior mid-cingulate cortex. Bro. AMCC, willpower, tenacity.
Unreal. And that opened me up to such new opportunities of learning and excitement, being encouraged that I'm making changes. And I did what I call habit stacking. I did the things that I hate, but I was listening to podcasts at the same time. So it was opening my mind up to actually listening and digesting this information that's given to me.
Yeah.
For 1.5 years, I do that. And then I show up in the Amazon forest, in the middle of nowhere. I'm a country boy showing up in the middle of the Amazon forest. What am I doing?
I'm going to take a quick break before we do this story. We're saving this one. I got to use the bathroom.
Yeah, buddy.
And we are back. Hit us with the ayahuasca journey.
So, country boy showing up to the Amazon. This journey
way out of place.
Way out of place. Oh my God. That is,
y'all got
can't
Brahms?
emphasize that enough.
Y'all got burgers down here.
You get the 5 burger bag. So here I am, flying into Lima, Peru, charter plane to Iquitos, Peru. And then you jump on a bus 3 hours into the Amazon jungle. And then you jump on one of those makeshift P-row boats that has like a little weed eater motor on the back of it. And we go up the Amazon River for another 3 hours. So I'm in the middle of nowhere. And the guy that's sitting right next to me, we start talking, and he's got military background, and we're going over, why we're headed to the jungle, why we're doing what we're doing. And this guy lives in Guam. I'm like, what do we have in common? And so we start talking about life. This dude's hometown ends up being Broken Arrow, Oklahoma, where I grew up. Like, we're in the middle of the Amazon River together, and we share the same hometown. What is happening right now? And if this was a divine intervention, I'm exactly where I should be right now. I couldn't have been slapped in the face harder than that moment. And so as we finally dock the boat, middle of the jungle, no escape, they start with the ceremonial dance. All these children are dancing, and they welcome us into their village. And we enter into the retreat center, and we get this opportunity to meet the shaman. And typically you'll see like one or two shaman at like a retreat like this. This place had 7 shaman, which was very special. They housed their entire family. They integrated community within it. There was a small village just adjacent to it, and that was all there was. There was this retreat, and then there was a village. But they worked cohesively together. They would provide them jobs. They would come in and work in the retreat, so that gave them some funding so they can continue to proliferate in their community. So I loved everything about it. It was about humanity, and that's what I really enjoyed about it. There was authenticity behind it.
The vibe check going into that
it's
can be
a
weird.
Big deal, right?
That concerns that people have is this corporate?
Exactly. Are we doing this for money? Are we doing this for the right reasons where we're trying to change lives? And the place I went to, and I'll definitely give them a shout out because I love those dudes more than anything. Arcana is the name of the company. I don't really boast on anybody other than places I've had experience with. So definitely do your research. I did mine and had an outrageously amazing experience. But with that being said, country boy, I say country. I'm certainly more city than country, even though I lived in the country. I tell everyone I'm 85% country, 15% country, or 85% city, 15% country. So bear with me a little bit.
If you grew up in Newcastle, Oklahoma, you qualify a little bit.
You get some of that. You get the middle. And so here I am sitting in front of these 7 shaman, and they're asking all the triggering questions. Why are you here? Drug addiction, sexual abuse, trauma, loss, you name it. They're going over it. And I look at them and I tell them, I said, had you asked me this 1.5 years ago, I would have told you that I'm here to heal from the loss of my brother. But over the last 1.5 years, I have put intention behind every single day in trying to incorporate new coping skills, fill up my tool belt that's been around my waist the entire time of my lifetime. I just never knew it was there. And I prepared myself for this moment. And with that being said, I know progress has happened because I would say on average, I'm having somewhere between 300 and 500 flashbacks a day of the loss of my brother. Some people struggle with, how do you have that many? It's like, but you think about it, as you can attest to, you have 40,000, 50,000 thoughts a day, right? So these flashbacks are just like really fast. But I started to form a tick. And it would be my way of getting out of that thought process, right? Exactly. I was like, get away from that. And that'd be happening while I'm driving. It'd be kind of scary to be sitting in the car next to me. He's like, are you okay, bro? And I'm like,
my guy's geeking out.
I'm working out. I'm working on some shit right now.
You cool, bro?
Yeah. That's it. We're gonna be okay. Right. And but what happened is when they asked that question, I said, asked me that 1.5 years ago, I would have told you I was here for the loss of my brother and healing from that. But I know I'm making progress because I haven't had a flashback. I haven't had a tick in the last 6 or 7 months. And when I think of my brother, I don't think of this wild negative moment. It doesn't break me down. When I think of my brother, I smile. I think about who that dude is and was while he was here.
Right. He went out on top too,
Oh my God.
It's a great way to go.
If there was
hindsight's a great way to go.
Bro. If there's anyone that knew how to live life, it was that dude. Like, he inspired me so much. And so here I am now in the middle of the Amazon jungle. And I tell him, I was like, I'm somewhere between 95 and 100% healed from that. That doesn't even like come across my mind anymore. With that being said, I know that I'm here for a reason. I know that there's so much that I can learn from you, 7 shaman with hundreds of years of generational education passed down. Here I am with the opportunity to be a student and learn open-mindedly of whatever is presented me with the medicine of ayahuasca. And with that being said, I can't wait to be a humble student of yours. They look at each other, they give me the thanks, thank you for being here, and they send me on my way. When I go and share the dining room table with the other 24 individuals that are there, everyone has these little spritz waters, orange spritz water, and I'm getting a little paranoid. It's like, what is this? What is that? I'm like, well, the shaman gave this to you to prepare you for the ceremony. So I didn't get one of those. And they're like, yeah, I'm sure you did. It's probably in your bunk or something. And I go back and I come back. It's like, it's not there. I'm like, well, what did you say to the shaman? And I tell them that story. I'm like, well, they told us that this would help us, prepare ourselves for the ceremony, try to relax us, decrease the anxieties. We're trying to prepare for it. But based off what you told me, maybe you're prepared for it. And that's why you didn't get it. And here I am as a salesman too. I mean, I sell in the medical healthcare field, and it's like, fuck, maybe I oversold myself.
Right.
Maybe I made a mistake. It's like, because I speak with all these other 24 and they've done LSD, MDMA, DMT, you name it, they've done it. And here I am. I've tried cannabis twice in my life and went into a deep vision that fucked me up. Right. And I was like, I'm in the middle of Amazon jungle. Maybe I oversold myself.
Right. And my first rodeo.
Oh,
it's not my first.
God. So here we are. We go into the first ceremony. And it's about to happen because we started at 8 p.m. We're in the middle of the jungle. It's all mosquito net all the way around it. So what's incredible about that is you hear the sounds of the jungle while you go into ceremony. All the lights are off. All we have is moonlight and then 2 candles in front of the 2 shaman that are serving the ayahuasca at that time. Well, because of how I'm located in the circle, I'm number 2. So I'm always one of the first guinea pigs. It's me and this girl, and we're always number 1 and 2 going up at the same time. Well, I'm feeling a little bit of an anxious sensation, and I look at one of the head facilitators there, and I'm like, I'm gonna be honest with you, I'm a little uneasy. I'm not going anywhere, but what should I expect for the first night? And he's like, oh man, Ty, like the shaman know your story, right? And tonight's just an intro to Aya. I'll give you a little bit. We ramp up throughout the week, and we just kind of progress, and you'll see that. I was like, you know what, that makes sense. So like this much, or he's like, yeah, like about that much. Cool. All the lights are off. Everyone's silent. Everyone's meditating. I know it's about to happen. And then they ask for the 2 to get up, and they come and escort me and sit me in front of the shaman. And he's blessing the medicine. And as soon as he's done with the prayer, he looks at me and he hands me the cup. And as soon as the cup comes to my face, it spills over the edge. And I hear the whispers behind me. And they're like, Ty got a full cup.
Right. You got a double dose.
Holy
triple dose.
Shit. When I tell you, I'm like, run the fuck away. Yeah. What the fuck is going on? This is no fucking intro into Aya. What is happening? But in that meeting that I had with the 7 shaman, is they gave you some very specific things that I haven't heard. I've listened to over 300 hours of experiences with ayahuasca, preparing myself to enter into the spiritual realm that I've never experienced other than that one time with cannabis, but it wasn't like what they were describing. So I was learning like how to relax whenever I feel like I'm being attacked, not to attack the attacker, but to allow it to happen. And then the lesson comes when we surrender to it. So I'm learning from all these other people's journeys. And here I was being met with this medicine like this. And so one of the things they said to us in that meeting was, trust the medicine, trust the shaman, and trust that they will protect you in your journey and you will receive exactly what you're supposed to. And so I'm thinking about that with this entire full cup of ayahuasca sitting presented in front of me. And I realize, 1, where the fuck am I going to go? I am still stuck in the Amazon jungle. What, I'm going to swim 3-hour boat ride back into the Amazon jungle and somehow jog another 3 hours, and jogging is going to take 15 hours, right? So
we're committed.
Exactly.
There's no going back.
And so then there's this moment of surrender that comes over my body, and I'm meditating in this moment. What felt like hours was, I'm sure, just a few seconds or a minute. And it was, you've done all the work. You've done what you need to do intentionally to be here in this moment, and you presented with exactly what you're supposed to have. These shaman with hundreds of years of experience passed down to one another. You're not going to trust them. That's your decision right now. Little 85% city, 15% country. Maybe we should listen to these guys. So I surrender it. And then I realized, if I'm going to be this humble student, we accept this with gratitude. And when I let that happen, this rush of love comes over me. And then I grab the cup, I drink it, and I thank the shaman. And then they escort me back to my spot. Well, because the room's a circle, right? And so we're all sitting around in the circle, on the front of our mats. They teach you like what positions to hold while you're entering into that realm. I know it's about to get serious because they just passed out the last cup and they blow out the 2 candles, and now it's pitch black. The shaman also partake a little bit of this ayahuasca so that they can enter into the spiritual realm with you. And it's quiet. And I can just hear the bugs in the Amazon jungle. I hear the birds. I hear everything. And then I realize it's about to go down. Well, the shaman, the way that they present the education, it's through a song called Icaros. And the way they receive the Icaros is they go on these extreme diets or dietas, and they drink through a tea or eat it. And that's the only thing that they take for months, if not years on end, until they receive the lessons from the plant. And that lesson comes in the song or in the form of song. And so here they are entering into that realm. And as soon as they enter to the realm, simultaneously, all 7 start singing Icaros. Bam. Boy, when I tell you, I thought someone was fucking with me. I thought somebody turned on this projector and just like, bam, big old like imagery across. It hits me so hard. And I realize I'm in vision right now. And I'm a little scared. I've never experienced, like, even though the cannabis thing, this is a different level. This is a monster of something I had no idea the magnitude of which it could reach. And it starts almost feeling like it's taking me over. And the way I describe it is my intro into Aya, if you will. I see like these massive playing cards, like the backside of them. Very, very beautiful, ornate imagery on the backside, colors I've never even seen before in this world. And they're just slowly folding in front of me. And they're getting a little closer. And that's when I first have my internal dialogue of, this is really pretty, but very uncomfortable. And I don't know if I can handle much more than what this is already presenting. And as soon as I put that out there, the cards go, bah, 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 and just attack me. I'm sitting at the front of my mat. I panic and just start screaming. I run backwards until I slam against the wall. And then that internal dialogue kicks in. I was like, no, I can't do this. I'm not going to survive. And in that instant moment was the first time I heard the voice of Mother Ayahuasca. And it was, you're not supposed to. And everything goes black. If there was a fear that I had leading up to this moment, it was that I was going to overdose and die in the jungle. I literally brought a friend that was a medical doctor just to make sure that didn't happen. She is sitting not too far from me in another seat. And here I was, entering into the void, the abyss, my worst fucking nightmare. I just died. And questioning everything that led me to this moment. You just left your child, just left your friends, your wife, everybody behind. Your family. For what? For this? For fucking nothing? For this is the meaning of life, is nothing? Mm. And then that internal dialogue starts to fade away. Hell, my thoughts start to fade away. And I start having the most simplistic conversation with myself and my thoughts. It's like, I can't believe this happened. It's echoing away from me to the point where I have no thoughts anymore. And it is complete absence of everything. Nothingness.
And just when I realized I had no control over this moment, I let it go. There's nothing else I can do. I overdosed. I died. The meaning of life is nothing. And here we are. It's over. Let it go. And so I do. And as soon as I let it go, I hear this extremely distant laughter. Almost evil-like. Like, it's getting louder and louder. It's coming towards me. And as this voice gets closer and closer, my thoughts start to come back. My internal dialogue starts to come back. And as soon as I can start putting together words again, I ask the simple question, and that is, what is funny about this? This is the worst experience of anything I've ever had on earth. And this is what death is? And that was when I heard Mother Ayahuasca with her first lesson. And it was, man fixates so much on what happens when they die that they forget to live. And if you're willing to make an internal promise right now that question may disappear, and you promise yourself that you're going to leave this moment and start to live again. Granted, I haven't lived in the last 33 years. I don't even know what life is. When I saw my brother, the way he lived, I was so envious. I wanted a piece of it. I could never even grasp a fraction of what he experienced. That dude knew how to live. And here she was presenting me with an opportunity to go and make the choice of those last 8 years after his death. I had been surviving. But now a line in the sand has been drawn, and I've been given an opportunity to step across it into a place of not just surviving, but step into uncertainty. And in uncertainty is where the opportunity presents itself to then thrive. And I decide to go as hard and fast as I can and step across that line and say, please, anything. I promise I will never live the same life that I lived when I leave here. She goes, okay. Well, then would you like to really see what happens when you die? I'm like, oh my God, more than anything. And in that moment, shoo, rocket ship. Only for about 5 or 6 seconds do I get to experience this unbelievable, unconditional love that I can't even describe to you. I'd never experienced what this could be. I'm talking enveloped in a way that you could rip me into a million pieces. I could not give a fuck. I am in full love of God right now. And I never want to ever take this for granted moving forward. So then I got to move past that. And then on to the next journey. My journey was very interesting. I'm a very stubborn dude. You may present me with some amazing things like that. I have amazing things outside of any type of ayahuasca experience that I could share with you. We could do on another podcast. I'm telling you, the experience I've had on this life, it would be shocking that people would be like, how could that not be enough for you? I'm a dark, 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 dark person. I never gave myself the opportunity to think that I deserved light. And so I got presented with another experience. And she took me into this infinite library where I saw, as far as my eye could see, up, down, left, right, books that were infinite. And she goes, well, welcome. Welcome to the library of life, where all the lessons are documented right here. And then I come in, and I had this like ego. Didn't even know it. I said, thank you so much. Am I one of these books? She laughs. What? Am I one of the pages? She laughs. Am I a single like letter? And then in that moment, microscopic view of this dust particle on the shelf. She goes, that's who you are. I'm nothing? She goes, yeah. Remember that. This life is not about you. You've been given the opportunity of life. Yeah, you get to explore. But this is not about you. This is about all. And in that moment, I started to listen, read the lessons. And I have again this big moment of gratitude. Like, wow, thank you. Thank you for allowing me to rest on the shelf of the books of knowledge, of life. I get to be here and rest. How grateful can I be for this opportunity? And in that moment, take off again. By the end of that 8-hour journey, I had died 6 different ways. When I say death, I'm talking like whatever you imagine death is, it's that times 1,000,000. It's a real death. It is wildly painful, terrifying, awful. But when you get on the other side and surrender to it, it's the most amazing experience you'll ever have. So here we are coming out of the first ceremony. Everyone's wide-eyed, talking like, I thought I saw some fractions and I saw this. And they see me and I am like ghost-faced, right? And they're like, well, what did you see, Ty? I'm like, man, I died 6 times. Man,
I just died.
Yeah, I don't think I can do this anymore. It's like, and then one of the guys like, wow, you went deep into vision, huh? And it's like, I'm telling you, I don't think I can handle any more than this. I don't think I want to do any more ceremonies. And I listened to this one of the head facilitators, and he said exactly what I needed to hear in that moment. He puts a hand on my shoulder.
Don't be soft.
Don't be. That's so. We grew up in the same football world.
Right.
Pick yourself up.
2 cups tomorrow.
Exactly. And
scoop away in there.
Exactly. But he gave me a shift of perspective, and it was, congratulations, man. I can't wait to see what happens in the next ceremony. And I realized what he was really saying is he was giving me a glimpse of hope. Again, the thing that I had zero of for the last 33 years, and now just a simple sentence can change the perspective and change the way your mind works. And so I went into that next ceremony with, what could happen? Not what's going to happen. Oh, poor me, poor victimization, Ty, poor everything's happening to him. It's happening for me. I'm so lucky to be here, to be allowed to experience this medicine that's always been reserved for only the shaman. And now I have an opportunity to experience it with them. Lucky me. I go into that second ceremony, and when I say every question I've ever had on this entire earth for my last 33 years were answered in those 8 hours. I come out of that ceremony like, send me home. I'm done. This could not be more life-changing. I've entered the jungle. I could never be the same. But I'm here for a reason. Let's see how much further this journey goes. Go into the third ceremony. Accidentally came up with a spiritual ego. Didn't expect that. I started thinking,
I have all the answers.
I've got it all. I have direct dialogue with Mother Ayahuasca. You guys don't know what you're talking about. I don't have to do any of this stuff that you're talking.
Prodigal son.
I'm chosen one, the chosen one from Oklahoma. So I go into it with that mindset. I don't do any of the meditations before. I have no intention going into the ceremony. I do none of it because I want to come out and share that information with everybody in the next group. Share that. You don't have to do any of this shit. The reason why I'm experiencing what I'm experiencing is because that 1.5 years that I led up to this point, I put intention every single day. I'll show you. It was because what I did. It has nothing to do with this medicine. It has nothing to do with any of this. It's because of me. It's me. I went in with that mentality. More than I had in the previous 2. Every day they ramped me up and increased my dosage. Every day. Highest dose I've had, and not a single auditory or vision happened. Nothing. For 8 straight hours. All I am is pissed. The analytical mind starts kicking in. I paid for 4 ayahuasca ceremonies. Only 3 of them are going to possibly work. You owe me 25% of my money back. This is the thought process that I have throughout this entire third ceremony. And by the time I get out of it, they're like, okay, ceremony is concluded. I get right up and straight to my room and just like, F this. The next day, right before group share, I'm sitting outside trying to think of what happened. I'm frustrated. And there's this dude that is one of the facilitators there that also experiences, but he decided to sometimes he shows up and helps facilitate. They just house him, and it's super cool. He shares his experience with us. Dude's like an ex-gangster from LA. Name's Chino. him and I don't know why. I've always resonated with people like that. That's how I was when I lived in Tulsa, Oklahoma, playing AAU basketball. I was always around a lot of rough individuals, rough life. So him and I, like, we shared a lot of similar interests, even though we lived very different lives. But he knew how to talk to me. Here I was feeling sorry for myself. And he goes, Ty, what's going on, man? I was like, man, I don't want to talk about it. I'm frustrated. It's like nothing happened. I don't want to talk about it. And he says to me, spiritual retreat. He goes, get your fucking ass up and follow me. Okay. I get up. He takes me into a restricted area. But we walk through the Amazon jungle, takes me to the Amazon River. There's this makeshift dock that goes into the river. And I walk out to the end of that dock, all 10 toes off the edge. So I do. Close your eyes. So I do. Put your arms out, man. Act like you're supposed to be here. So I do. He goes, now think about why you're here. So I start to meditate on it. He goes, okay, now open your eyes. So I do. What do you see? Man, I see the Amazon River. He goes, and how big does the Amazon River look? I look left to right. Bro, from my standpoint, it looks like it goes forever. He goes, yeah. And how big do you feel right now? Bro, I'm nothing. You need to remember that, dude. You're nothing. You're not the prodigal son here to show people the way. You're here to share your story, just like everyone here is. You need to probably think about that before you go back into that place and you share what you're about to share. So I go back, start journal, start thinking about it some more. And what I realized is I had developed a spiritual ego thinking that it's because of me that nothing happened. I got humbled. And then I had an opportunity to remove the magic from the jungle because I felt like this stuff could only happen in the jungle. It can only happen underneath the confines of ayahuasca, that I have to have this to heal. But in fact, it wasn't the case. I was so profoundly excited about what I shared every time with group share that I was listening to my own voice. It wasn't even me. I was in flow state just speaking it. And I'm trying to hang on to every word. I'm like, oh my God, this is changing my life. I need to listen to the things that are coming out of my own vocal cords. But because of that, I was so fixated on it, I didn't really get to hear everyone else's journey. I was so enveloped in my own. So then I had an opportunity when I go into group shares, I was going to tell them, guys, I was so frustrated, nothing even happened, just move on to the next. But I realized that would not be the gesture that makes sense for my journey, nor for yours. Instead, I got humbled last night. And now I'm showing up to the Maloka dinner table, if you will, with an empty plate. This time, nothing to serve, but humility and hopefully an opportunity to learn from your lessons. So for that, I thank all of you for being here. I'm so excited to dive into your journey. And I intentionally listened to every single person in that room. It was one of the most amazing experiences while I was there. Is when I was outside of the medicine. I realized this is the gift that I was given to go back home with. That there are going to be lessons every day that have been passed over me, that I allowed to pass over me because I didn't recognize it. I've been given now the superpower of recognition of when something has been presented to me, I can learn from it. That things don't happen at face value. That there's something behind it. Look deeper into why this is happening, why I'm experiencing this emotion, why my reaction is this way. Go deeper. What's the root cause? Go deep. When I listen to everyone's story, I had so much growth. I didn't even know it. There was a guy there that also lost his little brother. I was so isolated in my own thought process, I didn't hear this guy's story. And hearing the journey he went on with his little brother changed the trajectory where I was with my little brother. That I thought I was somewhere between 95 and 100% healed from. And I realized, nah. You telling me you got to see your brother? I didn't even ask to do that. I didn't even know that was a possibility. So the next ceremony, I got to experience that because I listened to somebody. Mm. But by the time we were all done, the owner of the retreat, he comes back to, what I had said. And he goes, let's go back to just for a second on what Ty experienced. And that is, He had no auditory vision or anything. He goes, and that's similar to me. I never have anything like that either. That medicine doesn't, I get to learn from others. And in fact, with ayahuasca, for centuries, only the shaman were allowed to experience this medicine. And then the villagers would then surround the shaman as they're in the medicine. And then when the shaman received the lessons they did, they shared it with the community. And that's how they transformed their community. That's how they transformed their lives. So we have an opportunity to learn from each other's journey. You don't have to do this life alone. This is a community. We are all one. We have an opportunity to help each other work through our PTSD, work through the traumas. You're not the only one to experience what you've experienced. I'm sure whenever you were that young and lost your little brother, you probably felt like I'm the only, where do I go with this? Mm-hmm. Other than your own immediate family, who can I talk to about this?
Not even talk to them.
See?
Yeah, couldn't even talk to them.
Couldn't, because they're in their own journey too. And they think they need to figure out by themselves as well. My own family goes through it right now. Though I may be on this other side of it, I still have family members that are mightily struggling with this, despite how far I've come. It's because they still think that they need to be the ones that figure it out. We can't force those individuals to learn that. But what we can do is through action, change your life. Start living the lessons that were taught. When we heal from PTSD and come from the absolute darkness, absent of light, and show them what it's like to be the most bright version of you, that's the inspiration that we want. We want the curiosity to get sparked. We want that ignition to light up. It's our opportunity to pour a little bit of fuel on it. Hey, it gets brighter.
Change is possible.
Exactly. And so I'm a big proponent and believer in, you may feel like you're like the darkest person that lives on this earth. The experiences that you've experienced are unlike what anyone ever does. And that goes all the way to the military background, you name it. We had those individuals inside my retreat as well. Things that you're like, you don't understand. You don't know what I experienced.
Everybody feels different.
You know what I mean?
Everyone's, yeah.
Always. Mm-hmm. But what I realized in these 24 other different lives, extreme traumas, they made my traumas look like nothing. But to see these people change and listen to their stories, man, no matter how dark your life may go, you're granted a gift, because the inverse reciprocal of that is how bright your potential is as well. Mm. You can only know how dark your life goes by going into the depths. But because you've experienced that, the trajectory that you can reach to makes you be grateful for how dark you've gone. Mm. The darker you go, the lighter you can become. So enjoy the darkness. It's a place for you to, in the moment, feels like chaos, because it is. But remember that the potential of who you can become. PTSD in some cases can be one of the best gifts if you know how to navigate it.
Yeah, if you use it. If you use it as a good thing.
Exactly.
Yeah, trauma and talent go hand in hand.
Hand in hand.
Not until your roots reach hell will your leaves reach heaven. Carl,
I love that so much.
Man, it's the inspiration. Is drive your roots down.
I love that so much.
Drive your roots down and go vertical. Yeah, I love it. Well, thank you for sharing all that, man. That's quite the journey there, dude.
Thank you, bro. Thanks for listening.
No, for sure. So like part of that is being able to share that with other people, because in general, like you just don't know much about it. Like you coming from Oklahoma too, we don't hear about those things. They're not accessed. The only access I had to psychedelic medicine was learning about it through psychiatry, and then actually studying Native American medicine with like peyote. And then I have some cultural background there, so that it made relevant to me. I was like, oh, well, what is this? And then I read the studies that were like, this improves depression or improves trauma or PTSD or ADHD or whatever it may be, social anxieties. So we had completely different intros into it, but it seems like the same outcomes of, you fix yourself, first, and then just be the example for other people, and then help the sad bastards, right?
100%.
Like, what if young Ty had the lessons that you had? What if you could talk to 13-year-old Ty?
Yeah.
And you could drop off that wisdom? Like, you would save him so much issues and pain and suffering. And that's why that's why I literally chose Psychiatry was like, dude, I have got to let people know that suffering is not the base mode of existence. You don't have to just live there. There's so much better things. And to go from like that scared, paranoid, frightful, scared of everything child to be able to be the person that I am today, it is such a, like, I can barely even wrap my mind around it sometimes. And then I get to have the honor, the gift of being able to share that with another individual. And this is where, like, biblically, like Jesus being a messenger, it just starts to hit. Where I'm like, yo, if you know how to help, you'll give that to somebody who is struggling and who is lost. And then you get to see them just completely turn it around. And there's nothing more beautiful, like, say, the guy you saw on the camera who got to experience that shift, right? It's like you see the spark ignite in another individual, another human being that's like you when you were dull, and then you see you flip a switch. And that's where I find my, that's the best of what I get to experience in this life. Like when you see that light come on in people's eyes, I get to see it in psychotherapy when you see like that lesson drop in people's eyes, or you see the young kid who their dad died when they were 15 and they were left without anything. And then you can see the flip switch in their eyes where like, well, I'm going to go and attack this versus being attacked. I can literally see the second that it happens.
What a gift.
Man.
What a gift.
Freaking beautiful.
What a gift.
Right. So we're just out here inspiring the masses because it also means a lot more coming from somebody who's a cool guy. Right. So that's why I wanted to share your story with people of you're a cool cat. And if this guy can do it, if this is obviously good, good looking, hardworking dude, successful, has been through all these crazy stories, like it changes the way that you view people, it's like, instead of me being otherwise in my past, I would judge somebody like you. I'm like, oh, he doesn't get it.
Sure.
Like, no, this dude absolutely gets it. And that we don't have to shy ourselves away from successful people because oftentimes, and happy people, because the happiest people are the ones who have been through the most stuff, the most crap, the most pain and misery, and then they, check this out, chose peace and happiness as a choice, and dedicating yourself to those practices is what makes you consistently that way. And you will never be able to do that with any regularity until it is a conscious choice. Right? To drink from the everlasting life is, Jesus biblically is like truth and love, authenticity. If you do those things, it will sustain you forever and ever and ever and ever. Chasing these cheap highs, they're going to be, you'll feel better for a little bit, a little blip, a little shock, and then you're gonna be right back to where you were. And how many times do we have to keep doing that and doing that and doing that and doing that and doing that before we have to find the path for us that actually works,
Yeah, I think my background in healthcare too. I always go back to this imagery of like an EKG where you see the heart rhythm, and
I hate EKGs.
Right.
I was like, so sick.
And not having any idea of what I was shooting for. I was just shooting into the abyss and hoping something stuck. So I always reached for those peaks, right? I was always there. Like, I want to reach the maximum level of happiness. That's where I want to stay. But you think about like in those elation type moments, if we were to make that just the standard, and that is the only place you ever were living in, you wouldn't even know that you were in it.
Yeah.
Because there would be nothing to conversely. Exactly.
No
you can't compare it to anything. So what happens now is if you stay at that peak and it stays like this, you flatlined.
Yeah.
We're in assistedly, we're dead. Yeah. We don't even experience it. So when I hear people like get down on their downs, I'm like, enjoy it. Even though I'm experienced what I do, I absolutely experience. I was just having that conversation with you earlier today. Like I was in a big down moment before we cold plunged and saunaed and meditated and breath work. And all of a sudden, boom, let me take some of these tools out of my belt because I think that I need to just handle it, pull myself by the my bootstraps. And all of a sudden, like, maybe I'll be okay in a week or 2 weeks or a month or a year. No.
Why not today?
Fix it now, bro.
Why not today?
Fix it now. We have the tools. And I'm so grateful for you telling me to come out and do this stuff because you got me out of my funk that's been going on for the last 2 days.
Yep.
And even though I had that knowledge base, it still sometimes requires that community to be like, hey, bro, come out. And maybe you would even know I was going through it, and that's okay. But it's the fact that it was presented. It was a gift, and I received it, and it helped me get back on this trajectory again. So that I'm forever thankful. And whenever, bro, and like we think about, go back to the imagery of the EKG. I think the thing that we should really strive for is not happiness. Obviously, it's not sadness, but it's peace. If we can reach a level of peace, then we can enjoy the ups and downs because we have that baseline to always come back to. Enjoy the ups when they happen, bro, and get deep into it. But understand when you go down, that's where we learn the lessons.
Yeah.
Enjoy that too. It's going to be tough doing that moment. In fact, it may be impossible. But when you get back up to that baseline of peace again, then you can start dive deep, ask the questions, bring on that curiosity again. Why? Why did I feel that way? Why did I have to experience that? And again, it always goes back to be curious about yourself, ask the questions, go into the root cause, fix the root cause, and we can go back into the peace and then increase the probability of us peaking more often.
Yeah.
I peak way more often than I go down now.
Yeah, I feel better on my worst day than I do my best day back in the old days.
Oh, 100%.
Right. Yeah.
100%. If you were to read my EKG right now, it's not healthy. It's just pop, 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 pop.
Right. How high can I get?
You know what I mean? And then sometimes that.
Yeah, how high can I go?
Right.
So peace is acceptance of where you are. So we're not here for happiness. We're here for experience. So what we're really after, so the books of life that you saw, for example, those are stories. The stories would not be compelling if it was all just cake and ice cream the entire time. There's a necessity for the swamp in order to make the mountaintop beautiful. So to be in that moment and to truly accept the swamp, and then when you're on top of the mountain to truly accept that is peace. Is like where I am is exactly where I need to be. That's my first sentence in every journal entry that I write. I'm exactly where I need to be right now. There's nowhere more important than right here, right now. This is exactly the lesson I need to be learning. And sometimes that's rough. And other times it's lit. Like when we were at the bungalow at that party you threw, and I'm sitting there with a jean jacket and a cowboy hat, dude, feeling like the dude.
This is where we met, by the way.
Feeling like the dude. Like that's a moment. And people, the issue is that they oftentimes shy away from their power and their potential and who they really are. And I have a lot of patients like this where trauma robs you of the view of the way that God sees you, of the way that you're capable of any and all things, that you're awesome, that you're the reason for all of this. People forget that, and it's all about, I'm just giving away, right? My only value is what I provide to other people is transactional, and they don't see themselves in that light that they are cool. So like my number one job is to get this person to understand that they are inherently extremely valuable. Like there's nothing better than what you do and what you can offer to the world, right? You are the main character in your story.
Lottery winner.
So you should walk around with main character energy. Like the video game is about you. You're also a co-character in somebody else's video game, but you are still your own, right? So that book of life, like that one's yours. So narrative psychology is one of my favorite things that I do with people, or in my practice of like, life is a story. There's a movie unfolding, a podcast with every thought, behavior, and action. And if you don't like where your story is, the pen is in your hand. Plot twist, brother. Give me a plot twist.
M. Night Shyamalan, baby, let's bring it on. That's right. My whole life.
Right. So like, skinny fat redneck takes a handful of mushrooms. Boom.
Love
There's
it.
a plot twist with the intention, of course.
Sure.
Right. To do better. Like we want to certainly advocate for the righteous and responsible use of 100%. Psychedelic medicines, because I have seen those things go horrifically wrong.
You have to prepare it. Without intention, you're going to get set up.
I'll highlight this about your case is my man did the research. He did all the prep work. And he listened to a bunch of testimonials, and he chose a really safe route to go with a bunch of professionals who knew what they were doing. And then also, it is one that we know that actually works historically through time.
Yes.
Yeah. And that was the same route that I went, in that I had done all the research first. I made sure that this was a quality substance, whether it be mushrooms, psilocybin or MDMA. Like it's tested, it's good. We know everything is safe. I'm with good people who are like doctors. You got a doctor with you. Like, you don't want to be caught in a bad situation when you're around a bunch of idiots or you're an abuser and you're on a handful of mushrooms or psychedelic drugs. That will literally mess you up more. It will mess you up more. And I've seen it happen to people who are like, oh, I'll never do mushrooms again. I'll never do any of these things. And that's because you didn't use it as a medicine. You were trying to use it as a way out, as an escape. And what it did was make you way, way, way worse. But it was trying to show you that. Yeah. It was trying to tell you like the bad trip isn't a bad trip. It's trying to show you the things that you need to work on, but you're running from that. And that's like I said, that's that victim narrative. You need to go towards it. Yes. What is this teaching me? Like there is one time on psilocybin where I was locked in a reality where it was only abusers. All of the psychotherapy that I had ever done, every rapist, every molester, every abuser, every intoxication, every physical abuse, every verbal fight, assault that you could possibly imagine, it was all in one room and in a vacuum. And I was in this reality with all of them at once. And it was just this shrieking of pain and misery. And I was literally thrashing, and this is biblical, dude, biblical level visions. And I was due for it because I needed this, because when stepping into other people's minds, other people's spaces and trying to help them through it, is that I had to have that lesson of, this is what this feels like, Benjamin. Do not dare treat this casually. Because my life at that time, it started to get transactional. This happens for doctors because you just do it so often. It's kind of like, yeah, sure. Let me guess, you're traumatized, right? Let me guess, you're whatever. And I hate that, because then it robs my ability to be present, and I'm not enjoying it or stimulated, or can I help this person? So this like highly aggressive would otherwise been the worst trip of all. When I say all time, dude, all time bad. Instead, I took it of like, don't you ever forget this pain. And whenever you're sitting in a room with somebody who's going through it, remember that they're experiencing this, and you can't be jaded. You have to acknowledge that and step into it, because then you can help guide them out of that and resonate with them on where they are, and then slowly pull them up and out. Because when you can look into somebody's eyes and tell them, I know what you're talking about, they're either going to think you're full of shit, or they're going to believe you.
Yep.
And it's just, you can see behind people's eyes. And I love looking at them in them and them knowing that I know. Mm-hmm. And that sets us up for the opportunity to actually make some progress. So what I'm getting at is that don't ever run from the bad trips, but also use these things in a very responsible way. And we know for a fact, this is proven, that if you do not have a healing experience on these medicines, that you do not get the benefit. So this is one of the most powerful antidepressant and anti-anxiety effects that we know, right? For including PTSD. And it is dependent on the experience that you have. So if you take a handful of mushrooms or MDMA or whatever, and you don't have a shift in your perspective, the way that you see life, then you get none of the benefits. And this is different than like the, SSRIs. You take a little bit every single day and it changes your neurochemicals and all that stuff. Like there's a little blip of that because you're only doing it once, 1, 2, 3 times, maybe 4. And then with those perspective shifts, it changes the way that you think forever moving forward. That is the real power, which is you. And I want to close with this, is that these things are not God. They are not going to save you. Ketamine ain't going to save you. Ayahuasca ain't going to save you. It's you. It's the God within you. These are simply tools to help you access that. And don't for a second think that you can just keep abusing these things and it's gonna make your life better. And you've seen that, I'm sure.
100%.
God, they're all.
I've done 60, 70 ayahuasca ceremonies. I'm like,
I've done
a little deeper.
Yeah,
3. A little bit deeper. What you're trying to learn here and what the intention is.
3 grams of mushrooms a day, every day. I was like, okay, dude.
That's going to fix you?
Right.
That's going to fix you.
I've done it all, man. I did all the medicines.
You fix you.
You've done everything except that you're the source of the power.
Yep.
So one of my favorite meditations or thought processes for any substance, anything, any relationship, just like that cup right there with the cacao in it or the hot chocolate, is your coffee. It can become addicting. Or it seems like it's the source, like it's giving us the strength, right? That's an external locus of control. We're giving our power away. So if we're working on addiction for people, for example, you look at the thing and you say, you are not the source of my power. So if you have a problem with alcohol or trauma or relationship, you're not the source of my strength, of my love. You're simply a tool that I can choose to pick up or not. And with that, I guess what got me through all my addictive tendencies, like it's not weed's not the responsibility for your good mood, bro.
Right.
It's a tool that might help you, but you're the one doing the work. You're the creator of all of these things. So don't you dare for a second rob your power. And you can do a lot of these stuff naturally. Last thing I want to kind of close with is breath work, dude.
Yeah, so incredible.
Good workouts, good meditations, good nutrition. I've had my most powerful experiences stone cold sober.
Yeah, same.
Sauna, for example, with some breath work and some visualization and some prayer and just believing it, giving it with my 100% effort. Like, I'm not running from this. I'm going to go and meet it. And I said it's always a little bit dialed up of an experience when I'm with like a suicidal patient or someone who's like, okay, I got to lock in here, you know, like, sure. So it kind of helps you access those places. But by all means, during residency, I had no access to any of these things. And it would be 2 a.m., 3 a.m. in the morning, and you have to go see somebody in the ER who just slashed their neck, right? Post-rape. It's like, holy shit. Yeah. I got to do what? Right? I got to do what? And their whole family's in there. It's a 14-year-old girl. You're like, Jesus Christ. So there's no running from that. Yeah. Right? I'm wearing the coat, dude. I'm the guy. I have to do this. And there's no wiggle. Right? So I have to lock into these supreme level of confidence. And like, I'm talking whatever's out there, I'm praying. I'm like, whatever, help me, Lord, you know, help me.
Come on, God.
Yeah. Just some humility here. And I lock into like, say the breath work and my prayers and my affirmations. I am strong. I am powerful. I'm confident. I can do this 100% over and over and over and over and over and over and over again until you can feel that voice of doubt go poof. And then all of a sudden you're washed like this purity of like, I can do this. Right, I can do this. The doubt, I'm going to go here and meet it. And then you go into that room, and I'm talking about you feel the fucking weight of all these family members being like, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? Like just pure chaos, pure energy. Imagine. Right. And then you go in there and you absolutely bang it out, Ty. Like I'm talking about, this is what life is about. This is fucked up, but we're going to get through this. This is going to be the best shit that ever happened to you. If we do this correctly, it's not going to be easy. This might be the hardest thing that you've ever done, but this can be a defining moment in your life to change it for the better, or it could be something where you can bitch out, tap out, hop off some drugs and quit like the rest of these motherfuckers. And you know that that's not the path for you. You know, because you've seen other people do it, it makes you sick. Mm-hmm. So here's the process moving forward. This is how we're going to do it. Organize everything. And you can literally see people's faces go from like this gray melting, like just in the depths of hell and dismay and lost, to all of a sudden, like, we know exactly what we need to do here, doc. And it's like, and you walk out of that situation, I'm talking like 4 a.m., like you felt like you're going to die. Yeah. And I'm like, have these these goosebumps radiating up and down my arms. I'm like, oh my God. Yeah. What is that? What is that?
Don't forget who you are.
Yo, it's so cool.
Don't forget.
So beautiful. So if you can get through the darkest of the moments, and you can feel litness, dude, that is my brand.
Yeah. I love that so much. I love that so much.
How can I dedicate my life to these moments? Where you're intentionally going there and locking in, and it's like it literally makes you not afraid of anything else moving forward, which is the experiential cure for PTSD. So you went and you saw death and you experienced death, and there's a great value in tasting death while you're still alive, because that makes you not afraid of it anymore. And now I can live. Like, so what if I die? Death isn't. It's not a thing. Yep. Right? That's not a thing. My story doesn't end when I die. It begins, my guy. Yep. So like,
when you die before you die, you'll never die again.
That's right. So. And numerous rounds of that. For the people listening, it starts so small. It starts so small. And these are big, epic stories that we're telling. But the first breath that you take in the morning, that challenge of you picking up the phone and calling the person that you haven't been talking to or sharing with, or you looking into your brother's eyes and saying, I'm here for you, or just having the audacity to get up and say, you know what, I'm going to do better for myself today. Even though if it's like, what's the smallest thing that I can actually do to improve my life? That takes courage when you're in a state of victimhood, when you're in a state of being lost. That's the inflection point between negative and positive. Of I'm acknowledging that this sucks so much, that it has sucked for 20 years, it sucked, and this is all that I know. I'm accepting that. And to have the audacity, dude, the boldness to say, I'm going to do something about it. And even if it's something as simple as I'm just not going to slouch for the day. I'm going to try to stand in my best posture. I'm going to try to take my deepest breaths. I'm going to try to eat some food that is somewhat good for me. That is the beginnings of this journey. Yeah, man, I'm getting wired up here.
I love it so much. I mean, I feel like just step on the point just for a second is like, what are you going to do to help transform those around you? Because this is a gift that must be given. This is not to gatekeep. Like,
right?
You went into the profession to do it. I obviously don't have that profession, and so how can I make that work in my world? And now being a business owner, honestly, because I became a healed person, now anything's possible. all the risk is nonsense. It's societal risks. First of all, I could give a fuck if it fails. I could give a fuck because I'm betting on me.
Right.
I'm betting on the community. And so now I've been given the opportunity to speak with my community. The conversations that I have in the garden of what we put out there, those concerts, having the conversation with you beautiful. In the middle of the garden.
Yeah, the bungalow. Love that place.
Bro, and now we're hosting, wellness classes, breathwork classes.
I'll be there tomorrow. Bro,
I love that so much. And like, that's the idea though. It's like, we got to provide this to the community. The things that we are learning in our own lives, building up our own tool belt, share the tools, bro. Share the tools because it's for everybody and they all have them. They've just not been taught them. And so if you've learned that this can change your life, share it. I mean, that's the only thing that I think you have once you become on the other side of that darkness and start to feel that form of healing. There's a test they did recently, not recently, but they were able to lock down the frequencies of that a human emits. And like love was such a strong frequency that put out. Forgiveness was a strong frequency that you can put out. But the number one frequency that was wildly larger than all of those was authenticity. And when you can speak to somebody with authenticity, like you see, like that spark in the eye happens because they see the spark that's within your eye. You speak with authenticity. That then speaks to me and gives me hope and says that there is light. I don't have to hope there is. I see it in your eyes when I talk to you. That's the gift that we give each other.
Undeniable. And you don't have to be a doctor to do that, by the way.
Exactly.
Like I want to highlight that it does not matter where that you are in your journey. Is I was having these conversations and flashes even throughout my youth, and that I learned the lessons of what made me who I am was actually talking to my patients. I learned more from somebody who's on the brink of life and death in the ER, where they say some real shit. And it's like, whoa. And that's what actually turned because I was really depressed in medical school. I didn't even want to be there anymore. I was like, I'm over this. I was like, this is trash. Like, I came here to help people and we're just profiting off of sick people. This just feels weird. So I was like trying to check out, to be honest. And I had a homeless person just hit me with I'm talking heavy.
Broken people got the answers, bro.
Bro, heavy. And that's what I was like, dude, what are you doing? So don't ever fall for I'm not where I need to be in order to be providing advice. I've gotten some of the best from seemingly some of the worst people. And I think this is why you hear Jesus was hanging out with prostitutes and taxmen and all these horrible people. Is that there's lessons to be learned everywhere. We are here for experience. Judge not, lest ye be judged, right? So as long as we can open ourselves up to that opportunity, dude, you're going to learn something profound. Like, everybody's looking for a defining moment. What if I told you that every moment is a defining moment if you have that particular mindset? Right?
Yep.
All right. Any closing words you got for us?
Man,
that was a good conversation, man.
It's never too late. It's never too late to start that journey. There's going to be times where you're going to feel so lost that no one understands the story that you're living right now. Depression is funny. It's a tricky, finicky bitch, and it tricks you into thinking that you have to do this by yourself. But the number one enemy of that type of sadness and depression, PTSD, is talking with somebody. It does not want you to do that. So if you feel that type of way, go talk to somebody. Hit me up. Hit me up on my IG, Bungalow23, or my personal, Ty Edward Hamilton. I love and live for these conversations because it doesn't matter where you are in your life matters. I care that it matters. I know this man, he literally signed up for the profession because it matters. Just keep moving forward and keep asking questions and keep talking to people. It's all love.
Amen, brother. How do the people find you?
Bro, just come out to Bungalow 23. You'll see me walking around talking to Street, bro. Baby. It's so much fun. We not only host the community to just have fun, get away from your phones. It's family friendly. Seeing these kids connect again, like it's back in the 1990s whenever we grew up. It's incredible to be a part of something like that in our community, but then now also on the inverse to also help people heal. So it's like, go party your face off, but also take some time and
like
yourself. You know what I mean? That's what it is.
Yeah,
it's duality, baby. You can do both.
Exactly. That's why I say I party pretty hard.
This guy has a lightsaber, by the way, that he dances. I was so freaked out. I was like, this dude is so awesome. I need to go talk to this guy
with a cowboy hat on. But
So
anyways,
good.
so I definitely do that, and I do that on purpose. Is that like I have been through some of the darkest places and spaces, so you had better believe I know how to have a good time. And that is a responsibility
Yes.
to me. Like party, adventure, and enjoying myself is an absolute response. Like it is when I show up, I'm like, we're clocking in right now. We're clocking in because you never know when your ticket's about to get punched and it's over for you. So when you can get it, you get it.
When I'm telling you, no one parties like this guy parties, but to hear your story, to hear what you've gone through, and the way that you go and show yourself out in public and not give a fuck what people think about you, that's authenticity. That's somebody that is on the other side. Seek those people out, figure out why they tick that way. And I promise you, you're going to learn something.
Agreed. Well, I'm looking forward to tomorrow, man. I'll see you out there.
Hell yeah.
Thanks again, y'all. We're out. Bye.
Peace.